10-second delay. There's nobody on yet. If it's 4 people, we gonna talk to 4 people.
That's right.
Because I didn't send another reminder today. Oh, there's one person. Hello. Gonna wait for a few more people to log on. There's 2 people. Hey, Tasha.
Hi, Tasha.
We're waiting for a few more people to log on. We'll start maybe around like 8:05-ish. Wait a few more minutes. Okay. So one more person come on. Hey, Insightfulers. That's the name I came up with for the followers. Come on in, Insightfulers. Come on in. You don't like that? I think it's cute.
It's different. It's different.
Is that even a word, first of all? I just be making up stuff. Hey, Carrie. Hey, Raydonia.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, Luana. Hey, Insightfulers.
You gonna hold a stroke today.
That's your name, Insightfulers. Starting about 1 more minute. We're doing well. Raydonia, how are you doing?
Shnequia, I got a question.
Sure.
I don't see our live on our page.
You don't see the live?
Mm-mm. Maybe it's still delayed.
It could be delayed. Well, the few people that are on see it, so it's there.
Okay.
So, yeah. Okay, well, it's 8:05. You want to go ahead and get started?
We can.
Okay. Well, good evening, Insightfulers. Welcome to episode 2 of Insightful Conversations with S&L. I am Shnequia.
And I am Lakesha.
And we want to thank you once again for tuning in and coming in and supporting us. We know that you could have been anywhere else, but we're very appreciative that you decided to join us this evening. And we want to go ahead and get started by just doing a brief recap of our first episode. By the way, just want y'all to know that we appreciate all the positive feedback that we received from that episode, future episodes, that it still has that same impact. So just know that we're very appreciative of that. But the first episode was talking about coping during times of uncertainty. So we basically talked about the impact of mental health, and we talked about specifically depression and anxiety, kind of the signs and symptoms to look out for. And we also talked about different types of help that's available, as well as coping skills. And we provided you with a variety of good resources that you could be able to utilize for yourself or for someone that's in need. And Keisha, did you want to add anything else about
you summed it up in a gist.
Okay. And before we get into the discussion this evening, we want to shout out 2 people who was very integral in making this to be a success that it is. They were really helping behind the scenes. The first person is Damon Fluellen. He's one of my really good friends. Just his encouraging words, his feedback, just the support that he provided. We really appreciate that. And also, I want to plug his podcast. He has a podcast called Face to Face with Damon and MK. They have episodes every other Monday, and it's a very good series. And so they have a Facebook page and a YouTube page, so you can follow that. And he also has a ministry page called Damon Fluellen Ministries. He's a really good person, really good man of God, very insightful. And so just follow him and get his pages up too.
The second person that we wanted to shout out is a coworker of mine. He's done some amazing, incredible graphic designs for the division that I work for at Florida State University, known as the Center for Academic Retention and Enhancement, aka CARE. And so we could not go by tonight without mentioning and thanking Wesley Dorsey for designing our logo. He designed the flyer. He did an amazing job with all the revisions that we kept going through and sending back to him. So thank you, Wesley.
Just a few.
Thank you, Wesley, for being patient. Just like Damon, Wesley is such a humble individual, very, very, very talented, very skilled. So for those of you all, who may be needing T-shirts, you may need a website, design, business cards, logos, and so on and so forth. Feel free to hit Wesley up. He does have a page on Facebook. He also has a website where you can check out some of his past as well as current creations. You can find him at www.westtheartist.com. So thank you again, Wes, for everything that you did for us.
Yes, thank you guys so much. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get right into what y'all been waiting for, this episode. So we titled this episode called I Am Enough, Finding Yourself and Owning It. And when we were thinking about this episode, about how we kind of wanted to structure it and what we wanted to talk about, we wanted to focus on first being self-worth. And I'm pretty sure that you all have heard the concept of self-worth. You may have different meanings for what you define it as. But I was actually looking at a dictionary definition of it. It's Merriam-Webster online. And they define self-worth as a feeling that you are a good person who deserves to be treated with respect. And that definition really resonated with me because everybody does have the right to be treated with respect and are worthy of respect. And that got me thinking about what my own definition of self-worth is. And I look at it as just recognizing your value, recognizing your worth, what it is that you stand for, what it is that you believe in, the characteristics that make you you. That's what I think about when I think about self-worth. What do you think, Keisha? What's your definition of it?
I would say the exact same thing. So how you view yourself, your value, the worth that you place on you. Outside of anything else that you have going on, outside of anything that you have experienced, just how you are content, you are at peace with the person that God created you to be.
Exactly. That's so true. And when people talk about self-worth, it's kind of hard not to mention self-esteem on top of that. And even though they kind of sound similar, they're a little bit different. Like self-worth look at what you recognize as your own value and your own worth, where self-esteem is more like your beliefs about how you feel about yourself. But nonetheless, they both tie hand in hand, because in order to have a positive self-esteem, you also have to have a positive self-worth. So not only do you have to believe in yourself, you also have to feel like you're worthy of the good things that happen to you, and you got to feel that you're being valued. So I kind of want to throw that in there too.
And not only feeling it and believing it, Shnequia, but also practicing it, like making that your daily walk. Because in essence, something that I tell my students, especially my female students, the way that you allow somebody to treat you at the end of the day says more about you than necessarily about them. So
Exactly.
that goes back to the self-respect and the self-esteem and things like that.
Right. And I also want to throw in identity on top of that, because identity is basically our self qualities that we have about ourselves. Like basically what makes us stand out from other people. And to have a self-esteem and self-worth, you got to be able to have a sense of identity. You have to be able to know who you are. And like Keisha mentioned, basically whose you are, in terms of, we want to talk from a biblical spiritual perspective, knowing exactly who created you and the fact that you were created for a purpose and things like that. So it's important to be able to figure out, who am I? I think that's a question that a lot of us ask. Many times, I know I've asked that, because I feel like when you're able to know your identity, you're also able to know what your purpose is, and being able to figure out how to get to that purpose.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So now that we've kind of given you a little bit of an overview of what self-worth is and what self-esteem is and what identity is, we kind of want to talk about what determines self-worth. Because a lot of people have different preconceived notions about what they think may determine what your self-worth is. Like, for example, a lot of people put self-worth in their appearance. Now, I'm not saying that you cannot look good. You got to look good. You have to take pride in your appearance. But people have different, what's considered beautiful. A lot of people are considered beautiful, like shape, sizes, color, whatever. So it's not meant for everybody to look the same way. So that's what I mean when I'm saying that a lot of times people may put something in their appearance, and then they find that they're often comparing themselves to people who they think may be considered a societal version of what's considered beautiful. Yeah. Especially like with celebrities. Like a lot of people often look to famous people, celebrities, as being like, oh, they're this and they're that, they're so beautiful, and they kind of compare themselves to that.
And I think too, like, I remember when we were younger, things change. So what is considered beautiful today may actually be totally out of style by tomorrow. You know, growing up, those of us who are considered plus size or voluptuous or curvy, that wasn't the thing back when, not when I was growing up. And so I had a lot of problems appreciating or loving the body that I was given. But then I look at today and those same things, like I said, that people were knocking against. You have people now out here, like I said, they're trying to get the butt implants and their chest enlarged and thicker thighs and things of that nature. So it just goes to show you that with time, the definitions of what people consider beautiful, it will change. So it's not something to necessarily get stuck on or get centered, to get centered in, because like I said, it changes just like the flow of a river. So you have to be cognizant of that.
Yeah, exactly. And another example is people putting their self-worth into their career.
Yes.
For example, like, you know, a lot of people want to be in careers where you're making a significant amount of money. But and sometimes people feel like, okay, well, if you're making this amount of money and I'm making this lower amount of money, that the person that makes more money is more superior or they're better or anything like that. And that's not necessarily the case, because a lot of times people that may be in these high paying jobs are not always happy. So what may look good may not always be good.
Also, title, Shnequia. So a lot of times in careers too, it's not just the financial aspect that we sit up here and we compare ourselves to others. It's the title. So if I don't necessarily have, you know, the title of CEO, CFO, director,
president,
you know, just all those big director, you know, titles that you can think of, a lot of times we can start to doubt our own selves and thinking that, you know, hey, we're not necessarily as good or talented as people in those positions. And sometimes the very thing that you're sitting up here envying or being jealous of, like you said, you don't know what people got going on behind closed doors. You know, when I step out of my house, I can look all put together and like I got it all together. But inside, I could really be crying. I could be screaming. I could be shouting, you know, for help because of my job. I don't even have the time to spend with my family, you know, like I want to. But that's not necessarily stuff that people around here sitting around talking about either.
Exactly. And then when you brought that up, I also thought about, you know, people in terms of achievements. You know, it doesn't have to necessarily be career related. It could be just, you know, people that won awards in high school or whatever, you know, for academics, and then, you know, you may feel less than because you feel like, well, they got all of these awards and I didn't get anything. So, you know, does that make me less than? And no, it doesn't.
Or a particular school that you know that you went to, or the degree, you know, I don't necessarily have a bachelor's or a doctorate, but you know, and as a result, you don't see yourself as worthy, not only as a person, but as a professional and things like that. So we have to be careful. Like I said, I guess like the attitudes and behaviors like we subscribe to based on society or what others think we should be at. And even like putting those, what's the word I want to use? Like we at times can be our own worst enemy. Yeah. Because we put a lot of stress and we put a lot of unnecessary pressure on ourselves to be in a certain place by a certain point in our lives. So even comparing that to family and friends and society and things like that. Like I think of like age. A lot of people tell, you know, as you start to age, oh, you shouldn't be doing this, or you shouldn't be wearing that, or by now you should have X amount of kids, or you should be married, and things like that. And once again, your life is your life. You set, you know, your own value. It's not based around what anybody else thinks. So if you are fine with how you're living your life and the pace that you're going, that's all that matters.
Exactly. And I'm glad that you brought that up because, a lot of times when we're in relationships or, we're in friendships, we can put a lot of our self-worth based in that too. Because, it's important to really be aware of the people that you have in your social circle in terms of, are they lifting you up or are they bringing you down? Because a lot of times that can have a big impact, not only in your self-worth, but self-esteem, and even sometimes in your identity.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And so people that you may have grown up with, people that, friends that you may have had in college, those bonds that you have created in your adulthood, some people are going to be with you, until the day, you leave this earth. And then for whatever reason, sometimes those bonds disintegrate. And it is okay. It's okay because people change, people move at varying paces. And so there's nothing wrong with it. I think a lot of times we try to hold on to people, places, and things. And it's time to let that stuff go, because if you're trying to go to different heights and higher heights, you can't necessarily take everything and everybody, with you along that journey. And so, like I said, it's not about being nasty and being rude. Hey, I'm growing, I'm elevating, and for whatever reason, we're just not on the same page anymore. And it's fine. It is absolutely okay.
Yeah, that's, the reason, season, and lifetime thing. And I'm a firm believer in that because, there's people who, I thought would be lifelong friends of mine who are not here. But nonetheless, I still am grateful of the time that I did have with them, because a lot of times that helped me to grow into the person that I am today. I feel like, sometimes these friendships and these relationships have allowed me to be stronger, to develop more confidence in myself, know exactly what it is that I'm looking for in friendships or in relationships. So you brought up a great point. Like, everybody is not meant to be in your life for the long haul, and that is completely fine. Because one thing about it, whoever is replaced, whoever leaves, God will replace it with someone else that will be cohesive for you during this particular stage that you are in your life.
Exactly. And also, it doesn't mean just because we are no longer bonded or as tight as we were, it doesn't mean too that I still can't cheer you on and what you got going on in your life as well. We're just not as close as we used to be, but I can still be there to cheer you on. And so too, that goes back to self-esteem, self-worth. When you know yourself, like I said, letting the pettiness, letting the drama go, I can still root for you and be there, for you. But at this particular phase in my life, I gotta set some boundaries, and I gotta break some chains as a result.
Exactly. And since we're talking about like families and friendships and relationships and things like that, I think it's a good topic to bring up about social media because a lot of times that can really affect someone's self-worth and self-image and self-esteem. Because let's just be real, I mean, everything that people post on social media is not always the negative stuff going on. They're going to post the stuff that they want you to see, the positive stuff. Nobody is going to talk about when they're doing bad. You know what I'm saying? And, we're so quick a lot of times to be posting stuff about, traveling and being what I, bae and all this stuff like that. And then sometimes that can to make other people feel as though, dang, I don't have that. It's something wrong with me. And that's not necessarily the case. I don't want to sound like a broken record because I know that you all have heard this many times before, but what's for you is for you and what's for them is for them. I mean, it's pretty much that's how it is. Exactly. And, you don't necessarily have to base what other people are doing and what you're not doing on things. So that's very important.
Oh, yeah. And we can't look at like numbers I don't have Instagram, so I know absolutely nothing about
Yeah,
Instagram.
yeah.
But like just on Facebook, you can't sit up here and base, for example, you post a post or a picture, and you constantly looking at how many people liked it or loved it or cared for it or so on and so forth. And
Or
so
shared it.
and so when you don't get, I guess, like the desired number in your head, once again, it can start to affect you if you do not know who you are. Because like you said, you can be who you want to be on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, so while you're out here emulating people or being envious and jealous of people, you have to check that, because that may not necessarily be their real life. That's what they put out for you to see. But once again, it could be a very different story behind closed doors.
Exactly. Exactly. That is so true. And I mean, it's very common. It's very real.
Mhm.
But like you said, it doesn't necessarily have to be the reality of
Yeah.
that person.
Yes. I had a quote that I wanted to share. I subscribe to, I don't know if you all ever heard about this YouTube channel, but it's called Redefine TV. And it was created by a pastor and his wife, Pastor Jerry and Tanisha Flowers. So if you are looking for some good biblical relationship advice, I definitely highly recommend that you check out their channel. But I was watching one of their episodes earlier last week, and Pastor Tanisha Flowers made a comment that really stood out to me based around what we're talking about. And she said, when you don't know your value, you will let someone else set your price.
Come on. She spoke a
And
word there.
if I had a microphone, I would have dropped it right then and there, because that basically sums up everything that we've been talking about, on this evening. If we allow other people's opinions, other people's perceptions of us, even like I said, us getting into our own way, you're going to constantly be chasing likes. You're going to be constantly chasing for compliments and things of that nature, when you could be content with whatever you have as of right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to kind of go back to something when we were talking about like different things that can impact someone's self-worth, and about family, because I know and this is not to speak negatively on family, but sometimes that could have a damaging effect a lot of times on self-esteem, especially if it's a situation where you may feel pressured to succeed. Like I know in a lot of different cultures, career is something that's considered very important. And if you don't have a particular type of career, then you're kind of deemed a failure almost. And that can have a detrimental effect on yourself. And so, it's just important for, just like with the friendships and relationships, that family, being mindful of that, and uplifting each other and family and things like that. That's important too.
I agree.
I wanted to kind of touch on some of the comments that we're getting. I like the comment from Carrie. She mentioned self-worth sets rules that tells others how to treat you. It shows people what you see in yourself and what you expect from them. With self-worth comes confidence, esteem, and personal growth. That's exactly right, Carrie. I like that too. And then Gwen, she posts, we post the best information. Think of the pictures you post. You post the best ones out of the group of pictures taken. The same is for the information we post. We post the best part of our lives. It gives a false view of our lives. We all have areas to improve. At least I know I do. You're not the only one, Gwen. I have areas to improve as well. So, yeah. Thank you all for those comments. And you can keep them coming throughout the whole discussion too. So now that we've kind of talked about things that can impact self-esteem, let's talk about ways to develop healthy self-worth and self-esteem. So what are some things if we're not feeling really good about ourselves? What do we have?
I would say one thing is, and something that I'm learning learn to accept compliments. I think a lot of us, especially those of us who are, you have a very caring, a very nurturing type of nature about yourself. You know, you're willing to help in whatever capacity that you can, and things of that nature. But a lot of time when people give you compliments, whether it's based around a talent or, you know, your appearance, or you just look nice today, you know, they're not trying to come at you sideways or trying to hit at you or anything. A lot of us have difficulty accepting compliments. And so as a result, it goes back to what type of value you place on yourself. So learning when somebody tells you, you know, thank you, or, you know, great job, or, you know, that dress or that suit looks really nice on you. It's nothing to be ashamed of. You don't have to, you know, feel awkward in that space, or feel like I don't necessarily deserve, you know, X, Y, and Z, because you do. If they didn't mean it, then they wouldn't have said it. So just learning to accept compliments as they come, you know, from people. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no arrogance in there. There's no pride, you know, in it. Just living and basking in that particular moment is one way that you can develop a positive sense of self-worth.
Yeah, Redanya had a question. She asked, what is the difference between self-esteem and self-worth? Because she said her phone went out. Self-worth is more about basically your value, how you value yourself, your worth. Whereas self-esteem is more like the beliefs that you have about yourself. So it's like with self-worth, you value yourself, you're owning it. Self-esteem is more like the belief system that you have about yourself. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay, and I like that you brought up about the compliments. One thing I was going to bring up was about positive affirmations.
Mm-hmm.
I know we've heard that a lot, and I find even for me that that's very helpful. One of the things that whenever I hear about positive affirmations, one of the things that comes to my mind is that movie, The Help, when little girl, I can't remember Viola Davis's character's name, but she would always say to the little girl, "You is kind, you is smart, you is important."
Yes.
And I thought that that was so powerful of her to do that, to be able to really instill that level of self-worth and self-confidence into that little girl. Because if you've seen the movie, she didn't come from the best family environment. Like, you know, her mothers particularly would make fun of her, you know, weight and stuff. And, you know, they would talk about, I think, how she looked and everything like that. So I really love the fact that Viola did that. And I think it does start at an early age.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I was saying that about the family unit.
Oh, yes.
Because a lot of times that starts with that, because the family often is your foundation for how you're going to feel about yourself moving forward and as you get older.
Yes. I think another way too that you can develop your self-worth is finding out where you're strong at. So figuring out your strengths or your competencies, and then from there developing them. So, for example, if you know, like I stated before with Wes, if you are a great graphic designer, don't just sit on it, you know, develop, see where it goes. And things that if you're great at hair, then do hair. If you need to go back to school and get licensed for it and things of that nature, you know, create social media pages in order to get your following up and doing that, then do that. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with you pouring into and loving yourself, because if you don't necessarily do it, then you can't sit up here and expect that somebody else is. So figuring out where your talents and your skills lie at, and then from there, devising or creating a plan in order to bring those things into life and or motion.
Yeah, that's very true. And in the comments I saw, and this was a point that I was going to bring up about writing. That really helps. Journaling.
Yeah, journaling.
That is a very great tool, especially if you're doing a gratitude journal. That is one of the things that I often have my clients do in my work, in terms of just helping them to focus on the good things that they have going on in their life. Because a lot of times when we're feeling, depressed or anxious or whatever, we're often focusing on the negative stuff, what's not going right or who did us wrong and things like that. But we fail to focus on the things that are naturally like going on in our life. The fact that we woke up this morning, or the fact that we're able to that we're able to walk and talk and see and hear and stuff like that, the things that a lot of times we often
take for granted.
Exactly. That is something to be grateful for. Or if you still have your family, you still got friends or whatever, that's something to be grateful for. There's always a silver lining somewhere. Always.
Oh yes. Another to go along with the journaling, I was telling you when we were planning this episode, something that I began to do when I used to teach, I created a scrapbook. And so in that scrapbook, I have letters that my students have written to me over the years, screenshots of text messages or messages they've sent me through messengers, all different types of photos and things of that nature. So when I'm having a bad day or I get in a spot like that, you can always pull out that to serve as a memento, to kind of as a pick-me-upper in a sense. And so, like I said, that's another way that you can develop your self-worth as well. Like I said, just keeping small mementos that people have given you over the years concerning yourself, the help that you provide, or things like that.
And also being assertive and knowing when to say no.
Yes, and boundaries.
Yes, and not being like people pleasers and stuff. If people are truly like for you and they're your friends and whatnot, if you tell them no, it's not going to be the end of the world. You feel me? People are going to be like, okay, yeah, she's not available right now, but I hit her up later, on another time when it's more convenient for her. Because not only when you have difficulty saying no, not only does it affect your self-worth and self-esteem, but it also can bring a lot of anxiety and depression, mental health conditions, because you feel like you always have to be on for everybody else. And that's not fair to you, honestly. Because I guarantee you the other person who's asking you to do this stuff are not necessarily thinking about you all the time. They're going to be thinking about themselves and what their needs are and wanting to get their needs met.
Yeah. And it goes back to what I said earlier. We, in turn, teach people how to treat us.
Yes.
So if you are the person's constantly calling you about, hey, can you take on this particular task? And you never say no, but yet you got 1,000,001 things to do on your plate. And at the end of the day, you cannot sit up here and get upset. You cannot sit up here and get angry because you never vocalized, you never advocated for yourself and stood firm in your boundaries. Once again, if they love you and they respect you, they're going to be able to acknowledge it and be able to move on. And if not, then once again, that lets you know you may need to re-examine that particular relationship.
Yeah, and I want to bring up a comment that Maggie said. She said, especially when you are the go-to person, but you can't go to them. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And, there's something, I know this is not really what we're talking about, but I just want to just bring this up. I often hear a lot of times, when there's like mental health, they're concerned about people with mental health. They're like, contact your strong friends and this and that and whatever. Like, that's fine and all. Yes, we should contact, people that, perceive to be strong and all that stuff like that. I propose we say check on all your friends.
Yes.
Because I don't necessarily feel like just because you're a strong friend, a strong person, that means that you're the only one that needs to be checked on. Sometimes if it's not a strong person, like they can be checked on too. Like, let's check on everybody. let's show love to everybody. Let's don't just pinpoint who gets the love and who get the contacts and all that stuff like that. I'm sorry, that's just a pet peeve of mine. I don't really always agree with that.
I totally understand.
Because I hear that a lot. Like, I get where they coming from with that, but I don't necessarily feel like that's always necessary. Just contact everybody. Contact everybody.
Say your strong friend just because they are strong in that moment. Once again, we all go through ebbs and flows in life. So once again, you're on a phone or y'all meet in person, they may be strong in that particular time, that particular environment. But once again, just like you needed them for whatever you needed them for, eventually they too are going to need somebody as well. But like you said, a lot of times we're not checking on those individuals because they're strong. They have it put together, that type of thing. And so we've got to make sure that we're checking on everybody.
Yeah. And I think something that we haven't brought up yet, but is very important, forgiving yourself. Forgiveness, not only just for other people, but for you, is so powerful because, a lot of times, and it was mentioned in the comments too, about self-worth being, how it's impacted could be by, hurt based on past hurts and things like that. And that's very true. A lot of times when we feel like we've done wrong, whatever the case is, whatever the mistake is that we've made, it's often very hard for us to be able to forgive ourselves. Mm-hmm. But forgiveness is key because no one is created to be perfect. We already know that there was only one perfect person, and that was Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? One perfect being. And so, we all will make mistakes at some point, and multiple mistakes. The key, you do want to learn from the mistakes, but you also want to be not so hard on yourself. Allow yourself to be able to know that, I'm not perfect. I will do some things wrong. I will mess some stuff up, but that's okay because I'm still a good person. I still value myself. I still am worthy of good things happening to me. And I also want to bring this up too about, it was a song back in the day. I think a DJ Khaled singer or something like that. All I do is win or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with that either because, every time you're not going to win, there are going to be some losses. That is part of life. And failures is going to be something that's going to occur. Like they always talk about, failure is not an option. Yeah, failure is an option sometimes because you know what? Failure gets us to where we want to be. It gets us to be to the area or level of success that we're wanting. So failure is important. So when people say that failure is not an option, no. Failure is necessary a lot of times for growth and development. I just had to say that. But failure is definitely something that's part of the process. And if you fail, it's okay. Forgive yourself and learn how I can do better.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
You're right. I would say like another way to develop a sense of self or a sense of worth. If there is something about you that you want to change, then do it. But don't necessarily do it because you're out here trying to please the next person. You're trying to please a man. You're trying to please a woman. You're trying to, do something so that you could possibly end up earning a promotion and things of that nature. If you want to change, do so on your own terms, at your own will. Because once again, if you're doing it trying to get accolades or trying to get somebody to look at you in a different manner, it may not necessarily work out the way that you may want it to work out. And it could leave you in a worse state than what you started out as. So always think about when you want to do something, like, am I necessarily doing this for the right reason? I can give you an example. I remember when my car. I started having car trouble a couple of years ago, and I love my car. I had a 2003 Pontiac Grand Prix. Called her Betsy, and God knows I did not want to let that car go. For those of you all that know my father has years and years of when it comes to, auto mechanic and things of that nature. And so he sat down and he had a talk with me. We took it to several different mechanics to, see if it was worth putting the money into getting it fixed. And it was not. But I would hold on to good old Betsy, regardless. Eventually, we started going car shopping and things of that nature. And I remember the car that I wanted. We went to this particular car lot in Tallahassee. I'm not going to say which one, but they would not put me in the car that I came there to test drive. And so they kept putting me in other things. They were, nice. They were okay, but it wasn't what I wanted. And then eventually they put me in a Mercedes Benz. Now, I've never been in a Benz. So, country girl. So, getting a Benz, I think it was like a 2014. It only had like 40,000 miles on it. So it was, when I tell you awesome condition, I think they said an elderly couple owned it. And for whatever reason, they end up trading it back. But they took really good care of this car. The paint job, excellent tire game, just everything on point. And honey, I got enough car, you couldn't tell me nothing. Like, I forgot about that car that I came there to see. I had made up in my mind that I wanted that Mercedes Benz. And I remember my father, once we got back into the dealership and, I'm contemplating about signing this paperwork, he looks at me and he's just like, baby, I'm not sitting up here trying to talk you out of getting this car, but you got to understand, everybody can't work on this car. If something were to happen to this car and things of that nature, everybody can't sit up here and fix whatever problems. This car has to go to, a certified mechanic in that particular area. And so it started to make me think. And then the last question that he asked me is, baby, make sure that you're getting it for all the right reasons.
Right
and
reasons.
So as I started to think on it, because like he told me, you got a lifetime, to get a car like this and things of that nature and build your money up in case something happens. But if you're getting it once again to impress people, to put it up here on social media, get these likes, you're doing it for the wrong reason. And so in that moment, thank God he allowed me to check myself. And as a result, I did not.
Yeah. And that's a part of knowing yourself too.
Exactly.
Because if you really didn't know who you were, then you would have probably gotten that. Probably
would have ran into all types of mechanical issues with the car that would have cost hundreds upon hundreds, thousands upon thousands of dollars. That at the time, like I said, even now, like I wasn't capable of handling all of that. I just wanted the car because it was a Mercedes Benz, and that was that's kind of like I've arrived, type of vehicle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can still arrive with a Toyota Camry or a Camaro or whatnot. I mean, that's all a part of not allowing, to be caught up in material things. Yeah. Which is a whole nother time that can occur. But yeah, those are very true, very good points. I'm glad that you shared that, Keisha. But I wanted to share, because we're kind of running out of time a little bit, but I wanted to share some books that I actually have read, and they've really helped me in terms of figuring out, who I am and not worrying about what other people think about me or perceive me and things like that. These may be titles of books that you all have heard of. One of them is called Tired of Trying to Measure Up, and it's by Jeff Van Vonderen. I think that's how you pronounce his name. But it basically, it's just talking about, how we sometimes feel like we have to measure up to a particular standard or feel like we have to measure up to people to be liked. And it just really gives a good breakdown and illustration about how we don't have to do that, about how we can just really, own ourselves for who we are completely, flaws and all, and and things like that. And that book was really powerful for me. And the second book, it's called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F, and it's by Mark Manson. I'm gonna keep it, PG, keep it clean. Um, and it's a really good book too. Obviously, just about just owning yourself and valuing yourself and just not worrying about minuscule stuff and just really like being okay with who you are and things like that. And if we even want to take it even biblical, we can do that because in the word, it talks about, ways that, we can love ourselves and things like that. And a Bible scripture that really resonates with me is Psalm 139:14. And it's a very popular one. It's the one that says, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. So that means that God created you for a purpose. God made no mistake when he created you. You were brought in this world for a reason. No matter how you got here or whatever, that really, really means that because you were created by God, you are somebody. You are a force to be reckoned with in this world. So there is no need to compare yourself to anybody else or feel like you this and you that and you're not measuring up to what everybody thinks you should be. God is what's most important.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
And then one more. Genesis 1:27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them, which basically means, again, just kind of reiterating the Psalm 139:14 verse about, God created you. You know what I'm saying? He created you for a purpose. And, not saying that we are like God, because no one is God. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. But the fact that we were created by a divine power who is just all knowing, all powerful, and everything like that. That means that, he took time to make us. So that means that we are special, very special.
Oh, yeah.
We don't never need to lose sight of that.
Oh, yes. I have to say one of my favorite Bible verses that I keep in mind is Jeremiah 29:11.
Yes.
For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope as well as a future. So although we may go through trials and tribulations in our lives and we get to points where we want to throw in the towel, we want to give up, we're listening to this and this person says this about us, or we're listening to that and that person is saying that about us, or we're measuring ourselves against this unrealistic yardstick that we've set up in our own frame of mind. For those who profess and believe in God, like I said, we have to know, like you stated before, that we were put here for a reason. There is a purpose on this earth that he needs you to fulfill when it comes to his kingdom. And if you take the time out, if you keep on keeping on, you will eventually find out what it is that he needs for you to do in the earth and how he wants you to go about it.
Very true. Well, I think we're coming up on the end of this very impactful episode. But we want to, leave this time right now for, like, if you all have any questions or you have any final comments that you want to put in the chat, feel free to do that at this time. Okay, none right now. That's fine. Remember, you all can always, post comments, later if you want to put stuff on the page, if you want to send us an email, that's fine too. Our email address is insightfulconversations37@gmail.com. We do read and check our email. So feel free to reach out to us there. And do you have anything you want to add, Keisha?
Just want to sum it up that at the end of the day, your self-worth is just that. It's what you believe about yourself. And so do what you need to do. Do what you want to do in order to feel good about you. Don't let anybody sit up here and speak negativity into your life, into what you got going on. At the end of the day, you know why you were created and why you're here. And like I said, for some of us, we find that out a little quicker than others. And for some of us, it may take some time, and that's okay. But your worth is entirely whatever you dictate it to be. So walk in it, own it, believe it, breathe it, live it. And for those who love you and support you, once again, they will be there. And for those that don't, it's okay. It's okay. Once again, I can cheer for you from the sidelines, or it may be a situation, hey, where I need to leave you be. But when you love yourself and you know yourself and you know who you was created by and what it was that you were created for, you won't just allow all type of energy into your life.
Yes, yes. And y'all, let's just love each other. I mean, for real, like, let's just take time and really like love one another, because we really need it right now. Like with everything that's going on in the world, like love is so important. So
that's the greatest commandment in the
Bible. It is. We weren't really trying to be biblical today, but sometimes God just have his way in the conversation, and we for that.
Yeah.
We allow God to have his way. But so that's all we have for tonight. We'll be back again in 2 weeks, August 3rd, for our next episode. And as always, if you love the content that you're hearing, please share, like, subscribe, get the word out so we can continue to put out content that y'all really want to hear and that y'all really like. Okay. All right. Any other final thoughts, Keisha?
That is it for me.
All right. Well, you all have a good night, a great week, and we'll talk to y'all in 2 weeks. Bye, y'all.
Take care.
Bye.